Before starting the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. September was mild this year. In the south, it was the height of the velvet season, while in the middle of the countryside, it was Indian summer, with all the bright colors, the rustling of leaves underfoot, and the beginning of the school year. Valentina Mikhailovna taught history at school, and it was a favorite subject for most of her students. The soft, kind woman knew how to interest and motivate even the most untalented and restless student. This year, her 5th A class has a new addition. A boy with naughty bangs and in a costume, obviously grown up, became an outcast from the very beginning. A small speech defect, namely stuttering and excitement, did not allow him to get close to his classmates, and he was very worried about it. Don't pay any attention. Vidyush. The more you obsess about it, the more you worry. The more you worry, the more you stutter. When you're giving a lesson, think only about what you want to say, not about how other kids will react to you. Especially since you are always prepared and your speech is much better developed than some. Answer in spite of them. Don't give them a chance to make fun of you. Try to motivate the boy to overcome his anxiety. By the end of 6th grade, Vidyusha had already forgotten that he had once been unable to say the simplest words at first. A bunch of psychologists and speech therapists and speech pathologists could not do what an ordinary school teacher did, guided only by a desire to help, not a desire to profit. As the years passed, 10 years had passed since the last graduation, and former students were visiting less and less frequently, while insomnia and blood pressure spikes were occurring more and more frequently. Problems and troubles poured down on the head of the former teacher in a hailstorm. The unsettled personal life of his only daughter depressed him the most. Third marriage, childlessness, explosive nature, and a desire to always and all prove something. What is it about your dating that upsets you again? My mother lamented when my daughter complained on the phone from another city about her husband, and Oleg was bad, and Genya did not understand you, and maybe the problem is in you. Tried to bring her former idol and role model for her students and bad mother for her own child. Mom, you're defending him again. With his education, working as a parts store clerk is an unforgivable humiliation. He has a red degree from university. He knows several languages, and he does what people without an education can do, said her daughter, who always lacked money, and her Vadim was ready to work anywhere, as long as his little Svetochka had the best. Valentina Mikhailovna was very concerned about the position of her daughter, who was well over 30, and she still could not stop in the final choice of a life partner. The former teacher could only dream of grandchildren, and her dream was becoming more and more illusory with each passing year. Before the New Year holidays, Valentina Mikhailovna's husband suddenly felt ill. Having worked all his life in a hazardous workplace, Pavel was not known for his enviable health, and now he was completely out of sorts. At first he was bothered by headaches, which did not let him sleep or just live. After the New Year, Valentina Mikhailovna persuaded him to lie down for an examination. By that time, no painkillers helped him anymore. He lost weight, became irritable, and almost went blind in one eye. The doctor's verdict was disappointing. No more than 3 months. I'm sorry, but you came too late. He is very weak and chemo will kill him before the disease itself. Sadly pronounced the verdict of the attending doctor, and after prescribing a course of drugs and recommending the hopeless patient to walk more, eat healthy food, and not to worry, said goodbye to them forever. My husband died in April, and the doctor was not mistaken about the timing. Svetlana, who came to her father's funeral, upset her mother even more. Mom, I need money for a new car, she said after the funeral in her unapologetic tone. Well, where am I going to get it? Daddy was sick, and all his pension was spent on treatment. And then on diapers and diapers. Valentina Mikhailovna, who had spent her last savings on her husband's funeral, and had not asked her daughter and son-in-law for help, justified herself. But there is my share of the apartment. Sell the 2-room apartment, buy a 1-room or a living room, and give me the difference in money. Why do you need 2 rooms alone now? Svetlana did not stop, putting her mother in an awkward position in front of the neighbor, who helped Valentina Mikhailovna to remove the dishes after the wake. Responding to her daughter nothing, Valentina retired to her room and cried, while her neighbor, with a glance in Svetlana's direction, went out of the apartment. And do not tell me that this is the family nest, that I was born here and my father died, and that all my life is associated with this apartment, and that it was left by my grandparents, and that it passed and your childhood. You don't have to be so sentimental about it. It's a Stalinist apartment, high ceilings, downtown. You have enough for a good 2-bedroom in the residential district, and I'll have enough for a nice foreign car. Why are you old people so stubborn? When do we have to live?" Svetlana shouted from behind the door, and my mother could not understand why she had so much rudeness, and beyond all bounds, a thirst to get rich at someone else's expense. The daughter left without getting an answer from her mother to her request, and in the evening, Valentina Mikhailovna felt bad, and a compassionate neighbor stayed with her almost all night. Weeks and months passed. Svetlana called rarely and always in a bad mood. She still complained about her husband, the lack of money, and the terrible weather. Then she slowly moved on to the problems with the old car, saying that the engine was malfunctioning and the steering wheel wouldn't turn properly. Valentina Mikhailovna listened to her eternal complaints, sighed heavily, and said goodbye. Sometimes she just wanted to talk about her husband, about the children Svetlana was never going to give birth to, about simple, human values which no one canceled. Before the new year, Svetlana called very annoyed and said she wanted to divorce her husband and move to live with her mother, selling the apartment she shared with her husband and taking her share. Valentina Mikhailovna did not know what to answer. She understood that her daughter's temperament will not be easy to get along with, but she could not refuse to move her. Another collapsed marriage, and the hope of grandchildren was becoming unattainable. In the evening, a neighbor came over to share the news and have tea. "Valyusha, I will soon have another grandchild. We want to name him Peter. It's a good name. My daughter and son-in-law are so happy that it's a boy because they don't have enough clothes for their girls. And my son only has one so far. He's in 3rd grade. He's awfully smart. He plays chess, goes to the music school, and on every holiday he calls me and congratulates me." My neighbors shared her joys, sipping her lemon caramel with aromatic chamomile tea, and I, apparently, will not have grandchildren. Svetlana got divorced again and threatened to move in with me. I do not get along with her. "Want to run in a nursing home," complained Valentina, winding a bright, shiny wrapping paper on her finger. "That's how it happens in life. I have a 4th grandchild on the way, and my husband has been gone for 20 years. And you and Pavel have been soul to soul for almost 40 years, and your daughter has never honored you and has never given birth to children. Who does she take after? You've been at school for 40 years, you were always in good standing. And how many other people's children you raise? And your Paul is always in office, was promoted to section chief, had a medal for valorous work, but respect from his own child has not seen. Well, don't worry so much. Everything will work out. You spoiled Svetlana. You have one, and she grew up selfish," concluded her neighbor, and Valentina even felt a little ashamed that she could not, with her pedagogical abilities, adequately bring up her daughter. Svetlana had not called in over a month, and when her mother called, a metallic, female voice answered that the subscriber was unavailable and asked to call later. When Valentina did not receive congratulations on March 8, her heart was filled with anxiety and foreboding of something bad. Still no congratulations. "What a bully," she complained to my neighbor, who had brought a big piece of homemade cake for tea. She must have been offended. I did not give her money for a new car, and the news about the divorce and moving in with me reacted without enthusiasm and approval. She probably changed her number and doesn't want to know me. Valentina tearfully shared her problem with me. Suddenly, the phone rang and a man's voice on the phone, knowing who she had the honor to talk to, said the terrible news. Svetlana and her husband were in a terrible accident. Vadim died on the spot, and Svetlana has been in the Institute of Traumatology for a month already. She needs an expensive operation, otherwise she will remain paralyzed forever. The doctor, the head of the neurosurgery department where Svetlana was laid, called. The doctor also mentioned that if in the near future there would be no consent to the surgery and no money, then the woman would be transferred to an ordinary district hospital, where all hopes for a full recovery would be buried forever. The doctor was so adamant that Valentina Mikhailovna's legs shook when she stood up to get from the medicine cabinet Corvalol. Valyusha, what is the matter with you?" wailed her neighbor, barely holding her elbow. Her first thought was to sell the apartment and buy an apartment, but that would take a long time. And the amount of money for the operation was not so great as to sell her favorite nest. After going around to all the banks in the area, Valentina realized that she could not afford the bank payments on her pension alone, and the interest rate was robbery. Taking out a loan and paying it back in installments from her pension. She had no such wealthy friends and relatives. There was a little rainy day money, so her own funeral wouldn't shake her daughter's financial independence too much. Gotta get a job, Valentina thought. After counting her savings, she decided to sell her mother's ruby earrings and a new boat with a motor, which had long been gathering dust in the garage. The garage was for sale too. It would be snatched up right away. After her husband died, several people from the neighborhood had asked about selling it. Mom's silverware had weight, too, and consequently a price. Her neighbor Glafira's daughter worked at the pawn shop. She wouldn't cheat, since Valentina had taught her history from the 5th through 11th grades. And it is better to sell the earrings on the internet. The buyers will only pay for gold, and there are huge Tanzanian rubies, which are much more expensive. Kirill, a former student and medalist from the second entrance, can help you sell them on the internet. He has his own site for the sale of rare things and jewels. He is a smart and honest guy. He is the only one who congratulates Valentina Mikhailovna on holidays, bringing her a cake, flowers, and sweets. What gems! What a unique cut! Are you sure you want to sell them? Kirill asked, looking at the earrings. The work of the beginning of the last century. I have no choice, Kiryusha. Valentina Mikhailovna answered dolefully, then sighed heavily. I'll give you the maximum price, since you have a hopeless situation. Even the commission would be yours. I do not need anything. By the end of the week, almost the entire sum had been collected. A neighbor added a little, and Kirill lent it to his favorite teacher. He stipulated that he would need the money in 6 months. I'm going to visit my daughter, pay for the surgery, and get a job right away. I'll pay you back. I haven't sold the boat yet, but I will find buyers for it. Valentina Mikhailovna promised her noble savior. The operation was a success, and by the end of the 2nd month, Valentina took her daughter in. She was already able to move around, leaning on a walker, and even put on a little weight. And the acclaimed pedagogue washed windowsills and scrubbed floors in one of the office buildings in the heart of the city. Kirill helped with the work too. Mommy, as soon as I get better, I'll go to work and give you everything. Svetlana promised affectionately, finally realizing what a great favor was done to her mother, to whom she had caused so much trouble. Valentina worked from morning till late at night. She did not understand where she got the strength to work so much. Her salary was just enough to pay Kirill part of what she owed him each month and buy medicine for her daughter. A cyclone hit the city in mid-June, and the rains made Valentina's job even more difficult. She would come home tired and fall into bed without supper. One morning, she zealously scrubbed the long office hallway and put a sign at the end that read, "Be careful, slippery floor." Valentina sat down on the couch at the end of the hallway to take a break. Someone was coming down the stairs from above at a brisk pace. Without noticing the warning sign, a young man in fancy, skinny pants and a graduation shirt ran into the hallway. He slipped on the wet floor and hit a flower on the windowsill with his elbow, which fell and stained the sleeve of the snow-white shirt and the edges of his pants. "You old scavenger, what have you done? Do you know how much my clothes cost? You can't earn that much in a year. I'll have you thrown out of here without a severance pay right away." The young man shouted, constantly humiliating the woman with inappropriate words and expressions. The manager of Vesta Plus was a scandalous and nasty man. His father had once been a partner of the current owner of the firm, but took his assets to pay off the debts of his gambling son. And the ugly son attached to the firm as a simple employee, who in the absence of the owner could solve the simplest everyday problems. But the offspring of the former partner behaved as if he were part owner of the company, especially in the absence of the chief. When he submitted an order to the personnel department for the urgent dismissal of the cleaning lady, he made her pay a fine for not having hung up a warning sign, the equivalent of an entire month's salary. Valentina walked out of human resources barely able to keep her feet. This month, she would not be able to pay off part of her debt to Kirill and pay for a course of therapeutic massage for her daughter. She stopped on the stairs to check the documents she had been given in the personnel department. At that time, an expensive car drove up to the central entrance, and the helpful driver, stepping out from behind the wheel, opened the back door. "Thank you, Ed. As long as you're free. Pick me up at 1 o'clock. We'll go to the bank." Somehow in a simple, almost fraternal way, the man warned the driver as he got out of the car. "All right, Viktor Andreevich, I will go to my wife to the maternity hospital and then to the car wash." The driver shared his plans and started the car. "What is wrong with you? Are you crying? Oh, you work for us. I also wanted to thank you for finally wiping the ink stain off the tiles by my desk and always ventilating my office. The previous cleaner was not very quick," said Viktor Andreevich with a warm smile. "I do not work anymore. I was kicked out for forgetfulness. But I do not forget to ventilate your office, and according to the wording of the manager, I forgot to put up a sign. That's not true though. I am very careful in this regard, and I know that wet tiles are very slippery. I do not wish people any harm, replied the old woman sadly. I have an invalid daughter. I know what suffering is like, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I need money so much, and me, like a yard dog at the door and without pay. What do you mean, out the door? Who would dare? Wait, how do I know your face? Valentina. Valentina Mikhailovna. I'm not mistaken, am I? Don't you recognize her? That's right, Valentina Mikhailovna, said the chief playfully, stammering. Vityusha Starykin. My boy. What a meeting! How important you have become. You are unrecognizable, exclaimed the woman and glowed with some inner warmth and light. Come with me. Now we'll put the entire personnel department with this upstart on the ears. They'll get the best teacher without a trial, without a salary. I'll give them a good time. Ludochka, manager Nikita and Alla Konstantinovna from personnel to me, turned Viktor Andreevich to the pretty girl at the reception. I would be happy to reinstate you in the position of cleaning, my dear Valentina Mikhailovna, but my conscience does not allow to force the best teacher in the world to wash the floor. Here's what I came up with. Nikita didn't suit me before, just the son of my former companion. And he's an honest man, and I helped him. But such antics don't just go away. I suggest you take his place. I'm sure an educator of your caliber can handle the domestic problems of the office. At least, even a less educated person than you can order bottled water to the office, sort out files and take calls in my absence. And let Nikita run as a courier. Maybe he will cool down. The chief voiced his decision and gave an order to the Human Resources Department to transfer the former manager and appoint a new one. I will try very hard, Valentina Mikhailovna said through tears of gratitude. You know, the salary is much higher than you were before, and you will be less tired. I will help you with your daughter's rehabilitation, and with finances and connections. We'll get her back on her feet in no time. I owe you so much. Viktor Andreevich promised with gratitude in his intonation. 6 months later, Svetlana fully recovered. She sold her apartment in another city and bought a house in her native one. Often she visited her mother, with whom now, after such ordeals, she had a good, even more likely very warm relationship. One evening, she dropped in at Valentina's for tea, holding a cake and a box of grillage and chocolate, her mother's favorite candy. Mother, I have met a wonderful man. I assure you we will be happy. Svetlana shared her happiness, and Valentina felt a little calmer in her soul. Tell me about it. I saw your daughter at the mall with a boyfriend. He is a good-looking guy. She smiles at him and wants to please him in every way. They are so happy. The neighbor told Valentina about her meeting with her daughter. What is there to tell? They are getting married next month. We mustn't wait, Valentina said proudly, pouring tea into beautiful cups. Why not? What's the hurry? She ought to get to know her privately. Wait, she's what? Really? She's almost 40. Mother of God. I didn't get my hopes up. Who's it gonna be? Let the girl be the first. She'll help out around the house. And men love girls so much and spoil them. Her neighbor was happy for Valentina. I don't care who it is. I have no choice. I want to have grandchildren. I want to quit my job as soon as possible. Debts handed out, my daughter cured. Now I want to be a real grandmother, said Valentine with a smile and pulled out of the box with a knit tiny socks. Some miracle. That would have been your Paul happy. Too bad he did not live long. The two neighbors were drinking tea, chatting happily, and outside the window, the birds were singing and the acacia trees smelled. The children were taking their exams. When I left school, I thought that was it. Life had stopped. And then Pasha was gone, and retirement became a small nuisance compared to such a loss. Then my daughter. You know, a person is such a powerful force that can endure and withstand anything if there's love and hope in him, and I have 7 of both.